Season 1s of each chapter have earned a reputation of being very uneventful with little to no content and replayability, and for a while that was the case, but I'm going to tell you why over time Fortnite got their shit together and ended up developing a pattern of starting off their chapters very strong. If you don't hate me, you'll use my creator code. Alright, start the video. Chapter 1, Season 1 isn't exactly branded as a Season 1, but this is where the season formula technically started. Despite having the bare minimum in terms of resources, the season garnered a lot of attention regardless of how objectively shittier this season looks compared to nowadays. Pushing aside the fact that everyone was bad at the game and there was a sense of wonder and replayability, you can't tell me that if this was released right now, it wouldn't die in like 3 hours. I think factors like the art style and additions like slurp juice, medkits, and shield potions pushed the season's longevity a little longer to carry the player base over to Season 2. You have some noteworthy updates like 50v50 and Fortnitemares, and to be honest, aside from skins, which don't affect gameplay, the pumpkin launcher was a reskin of the rocket launcher, which also doesn't affect gameplay. It's weird because you can't really be that pissed at the season for being boring because it's the first one ever, but like, there's literally nothing.
There's nothing.
Season X was a diarrhea season. Players and streamers were burnt out and longed for a new map and a fresh start. So what does Fortnite do when it realizes that the player base doesn't want it to be too chaotic? I've expressed my fair share of issues with this season multiple times in the past, and I still stand by those opinions, and will still say that this season almost killed the game again, right after Season X almost killed the game. I think this season hits the nail on the head at its main job as acting as a soft reboot for Fortnite. A new start, new opportunities, weapons given a new coat of paint, graphical upgrade on the map. Can you hold my slurp juice? I'm going to the Star Wars event, which was a blatant ad for the worst Star Wars movie of all time, you know I'm right.
Somehow Palpatine returns.
Regardless of your thoughts on the event, it was still an event. You can't say that about a lot of the Season 1s. This season was bland as shit, believe me, but it's the little things like the small quality of life changes and mechanics that would carry over today that makes this season memorable in its own right. Swimming, carrying teammates and enemies, edit on release, and fishing. I would tell you how mind-blowing this was for me at the time, but I can't right now because I'm at the Star Wars event. This season's loot pool was very bare bones, and that's the point. It felt like we went back to the Stone Ages in Fortnite and we had to work our way back up to more fleshed out loot pools throughout the chapter, and that very much coincides with the whole reset idea Fortnite was going for. Our Fortnitemares that year was the Harpoon update, if you can call it that. Now, I'm all for unvaults and everything, but when the unvaults are actual standard weapons that would typically be in a normal loot pool, it kind of feels like a cop-out since it feels like a big deal, given that the current loot pool was already super basic for the time, so it's a quick adrenaline rush of, ooh, I haven't seen this weapon in a while. This pattern would continue on throughout the Winterfest update that year, where things like the tactical SMG and the double-barrel shotgun got unvaulted for a single day. Speaking of Winterfest, this was the first time we got Crackshot's Cabin, which would be a fan favorite addition among fans. Like the live event, this doesn't affect the gameplay, but still. And to be honest, the lightsabers that got added were pretty much the only thing that kept the season alive. I'll stand on that opinion till I die. And despite the gameplay feeling very fun and addicting for a while, it heavily suffered when the season decided to not give us a lot to work with, which is unfortunate because it's the cold hard truth. I know I'm gonna die when I say this, but I'll tear off the band-aid. I did not care for the Spider-Man season.
What?
Did not care for the Spider-Man season. When Fortnite normally has a huge spike of people returning to the game to see what big update came out that everyone's talking about, I think Chapter 3 Season 1 is one of those moments in time aside from Zero Build coming out, Fortnite OG, and Chapter 5 Season 1 because they wanted to buy Peter Griffin. Now, despite my issues with this season, I cannot deny the amount of replayability the season had. The Spider-Man Mythic Tilted Towers returning with arguably the best Winterfest and even more quality of life changes and mechanics like sliding, tents, and victory crowns. Personally, I still think there's a lot of problems with this season gunplay wise. Like them making the shotguns really shitty in favor of making the SMGs really powerful really twisted my gonads the wrong way. It reminded me of Season 5 of Chapter 1 with the heavy buffs to the SMGs like the P90 and drum gun. I also think the MK7 assault rifle having a red dot sight sounds cool on paper, but in actuality, it really is the most broken shit having a hit scan automatic rifle. I'm not saying red dot sight guns are bad, I think they can be implemented better like the red eye in Chapter 4, but these two factors really made me hate the season gameplay wise, but for the casual players, I can definitely see why people absolutely adore this season. Also, considering the SMGs and red dot sites are more beginner friendly for newcomers that came to Fortnite because of the Spider-Man shit. Despite my issues, the YouTubers got to farm content off the season, and a lot of casuals really found the season to be fun and addicting. And you know what? Fair enough. They have the right to like this season, and at this point we start to see a pattern of Fortnite going from really shitty season 1s that drag on forever and ever, to season 1s that have a lot more effort put into them as well as a large incentive to keep playing. I still think this isn't a good season, but there was plenty of eye candy to go around.
Oh my god, give me that! No, that!
While Chapter 4 Season 1's map appears to be less dense with fewer POIs that are spread out, you would think that the season would be boring as shit. Well, I'm here to tell your ass that you're wrong, and I'm right. This season made up for it with its near perfect loot pool, mainly the Red Eye Assault Rifle, Thunder Pump Shotgun, and Twin Mag SMG. If Fortnite wants to make guns in the future that feel satisfying to use, then they really need to take notes from this season. I think the Red Eye Assault Rifle is the closest thing to perfection when it comes to a hit scan red dot weapon. It's not fully automatic, it's not a burst rifle, it's a single shot weapon they have to keep tapping at the cost of having a bit of kick to it. The Thunder Pump is easily one of the most satisfying to use shotguns ever made. Take notes, Chapter 5. Ugly little shit. But the kinetic camera was one of the funnest means of rotation of all time. I know I glazed the loot pool for a while, but I wanted to hone in on something that recent seasons of Fortnite failed to accomplish. Weapons that feel good will keep players playing.
So delicious!
There were so many things added in this season that made the gameplay feel better, like augments, the key chest system, as well as the new 5 exotic weapons during the Heisted Exotic update. This season didn't just excel at having enough content debunking the boring stigma season 1s have, but it also excels at actual quality, whether that be the loot pool or the amount of discovering you want to do with the fleshed out features like augments and what they do and how can I grind for gold this season to buy those augments. And I think at this point, Fortnite's 2 for 2 for engaging chapter opening seasons.
I didn't even know to look up there. You died of Ligma.
The start of Chapter 5 looked really promising given the overhaul of many features with the addition of weapon mods, medallions, and wall climbing. No one cares about this shit. Now, I'm gonna be transparent. I acknowledge that in my Season 1 review, I stated that the season was really stale and I wanted more crazy shit in the game instead of basic gunplay. And given how Chapter 5 has made that wish a reality by going overboard on that wish, my perspective has changed on Season 1. The gameplay flow of landing at a medallion POI, then dealing with the boss granting you the mod bench, was surprisingly a very addicting start to each match. It was a good routine, and even if you didn't land at a medallion POI, the vaults were most likely open for the whole game. And to me, this was peak weapon mod implementation. It wasn't perfect, but the perspective changes once you look at the bigger picture and realize that weapon mods are an afterthought now. This was the only season that truly felt like weapon mods actually affected your game. Not to mention that mobility items this chapter peaked during the season in terms of not having to fight fire with fire like Season 3 and Season 4. Fights felt natural, and the chaos that other seasons this chapter try to emulate started from actual gunplay and utilizing things like the grapple blade. Trust me, I'm not denying that this season has problems. It does. The snipers and the auto shotgun were must-haves, and I do think that there was a semi-drought of content, and the content we did get was a fucking box. We had a terrible Winterfest, and we had really shitty movement for a while, which turned a lot of people off. But one thing I will give the season credit for is that it had its shit together start to finish. It was also a good entry point for new players given how there was a large spike in numbers this season due to players coming over from Fortnite OG and the Big Bang event. So the season had to give new players a reason to stick around. How do you do that? You overhaul the entire ass game.
Whoa! Yeah, wow.
Unlike Season 3's where they have yet to break the curse of being bad starting at Chapter 3, I have to say that Season 1's have definitely broken their curse of being boring. In fact, I would go as far as changing the sentiment from our Season 1's boring to our Season 1's grounded, and the answer is yes. And I think the Season 1 that shines the most out of all of these is Chapter 4. This is how you start a chapter. Have your goofy rotational item, yet being fair enough to where you don't necessarily need one to win. Have a beefy update that adds 5 new powerful weapons. Emphasis on weapons rather than adding powers that dominate the meta for the sake of incentivizing people to use said powers. A strong shotgun and overall solid loot pool. Room for the map to grow and develop, and heaps of potential. I think Chapter 5 Season 1 is a close second due to mod benches being more frequent, thus capitalizing on the flagship edition that season, followed by Chapter 2 Season 1 because none of the weapons were insanely busted with terrible shotguns, followed by Chapter 3 Season 1 since the MK Assault Rifle made me want to chainsaw my balls off.
Ain't you a goddamn f***ing piece of shit?
With Chapter 1 Season 1 being in last place, go figure. I mean, at the end of the day, Season 1s are supposed to be like this, gunplay oriented and grounded, which is the reason why I'm excited for Chapter 6 Season 1. With the amount of polls coming out about hitscan versus bullet drop, makes the possibility of hitscan coming back in Chapter 6 pretty likely at this point, as well as a gun orientated Season 1, and the obligatory items that make us love Fortnite, like junk riffs. Please bring back junk riffs.
I need to take my- hold on guys, let me take my
What's your favorite Season 1? I already know that there's 50 pipe bombs being mailed to my house right now for not liking the Spider-Man season, but opinions vary throughout people and that's normal. Use my creator code or else you hate me. Otherwise, I'm gonna head out, have a wholesome day, and fly away today.